So you want to break into advertising and you're thinking to yourself, shit, what now? Well, in this episode I talked to Zac Nairn, who is a junior art director at The Hallway, same agency as me, but he wasn't always a junior art director. He was a designer prior to that, and I think he's had a really interesting journey going from a person who has been on the tools to that more conceptual thinker. I think really has benefited him in his career. So I think if that's the direction you want to head, you'll find this really useful. Please don't forget to like, share and subscribe below. And as always, enjoy the episode. Hey Zac, welcome to Shit What Now. Thanks for coming on today. How you doing?
I'm good, Chris. How are you, mate?
Yeah, really well. Thank you. Really well. It's a privilege to have you on here because in series 1, we had Casey, who was your creative partner on here, who's the copywriter. And now we have you as the art director in series 2. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting into it. But Zac, for those who have just logged onto the episode and are just looking, can you tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
I am the junior art director at the independent agency called The Hallway. I spend half my time staring a hole through Photoshop and the other half locked in a room with my creative partner, Casey, trying to crack briefs.
Awesome. A very apt description. And what made you want to get into advertising?
Oh, man. I mean, I had a lot of family in advertising, a lot of old blood, as they call it. I started out probably just after school. I did an ad school. I was quite young. I was like 17. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. And yeah, just fell in love with it. I remember my first session, we were all sitting in a room drinking beers, trying to crack a brief for Macca's fries. And I just thought that was so fucking awesome. That just made me pumped just to keep going at it.
Yeah, totally. So you've always had that profound, I guess, curiosity for advertising. Yeah,
and I guess just growing up around it too, I just soaked so much of it up that like when I went to go find a career, it kind of just exploded out of me. I mean, I started out in branding and design, but that was kind of my path as a designer. And then, I always had this kind of yearning to do something a little bit more in the conceptual advertising space. And so those skills just translated really well, and it put me in a good position.
That's really interesting because talking to a design director on here in series 1, he was saying that at university you did both. So you were both the conceptual thinker and the person on the tools. And in your instance, you were the person on the tools who's then retrained to become that more conceptual thinker. And as a suit, I always find that the conceptual thinkers who can also get on the tools is exceptionally useful, especially when it comes to bringing concept to life, literally, and making the studio's job a lot easier.
Yeah, I find those skills just translate so well, and having that background in conceptual thinking as well, like being able to work with my partner Casey, it really just works amazing for us, and it's helpful. Sorry.
So Zac, take me back exactly then. You started off as a designer.
Yep.
What was your path into design, and like what did you do to land that job?
I just did a degree in visual communications at Billy Blue, which was really good. It was really good just to learn how to put into practice that design thinking, understand what branding is in general, like understand the strategy behind it, which was awesome. And then straight out of uni, I landed a job, which was really great for me. It just like had some really great mentors. Mick and Francis, if you're listening, you're amazing, because they just put so much enthusiasm into me about the industry. And it was just great to see these two like legends work.
Yeah, brilliant. And it's obviously there are some transferable skills from going from a designer to a art director and vice versa. But did you ever have I guess for lack of a better phrase, a shit what now moment during that time where you kind of thought like, this is harder than I thought?
Oh man, I've had so many shit what now moments. When I was a designer, I remember just like, it's a difficult job. It really is. It's like, you're trying to grasp that conceptual thinking, but also really be technical and craft your work. And I remember having a conversation with my design director at the time, and we were talking about it, and he was kind of telling me, he could see that my area that I really wanted and loved was in art direction. But I was in this industry of design, and I was giving it my best shot. But I that was always where I wanted to be. And he said, you just have to chase that. And that was really useful information to me, just to have a true north of my career. And whatever I did from that point on, whether it be design or whatever, I would always assume that that's going to help me get to that point. So yeah, I spent a few more months as a designer, always keeping my eye out for the next art direction role, like whatever comes up, however I can do it. I'm just going to go ham to try get to that. And it ended up working out. I landed a junior role at Orchard, which was awesome, a junior art director role. It was still a lot of design from that point, but it was amazing in teaching me like the basics of art direction and the fundamental skills of being a designer. And yeah, it worked really well for me. And then it got to the point where I was like, because I was in healthcare at Orchard, I just got to the point where I was wanting to do consumer. And so I was lucky enough to meet the beautiful Casey Clark, and we got partnered together. And since then, it's just been amazing working on consumer stuff with her, and understanding how she works and seeing how that partnership can flourish into creating great work. And from my point of view, it's great having those fundamental skills, because whatever projects we have, it's something I can bring to the table for her.
Yeah, totally. And I think you two as a team complement each other very well. And I think, the future art directors out there, I think it's almost a prerequisite that you have to be good at being on the tools. I think the days of someone just kind of scamping something or mocking things up in Canva won't cut the mustard. I think would highly recommend you come from a design background, or if you don't, get qualifications in learning how to use Photoshop or something to that effect.
Yeah, and it's not just about having those fundamental skills. It's also great in advertising to have a different perspective and bring something that someone else might not. And just getting that experience of working with people who are on the other side and in a different industry is just so beneficial to whatever you do. And I know it's just helped me a lot in that way.
Yeah, totally. And Zach, within the conversation we've just had, there's been a plethora of different tips that you've had, from having a true north. So whatever you do, it's somewhat purpose driven and helping you to achieve that goal. So in your instance, it was to become a art director, which you've done, well done. But then also to things like having different perspectives, having a foot in the conceptual camp, and then in a practical on the tools camp. All of these things you've obviously learned on your journey. If you could sort of turn back and look the other way, back through the telescope now, and speak to yourself, let's say before you started, what would you say?
Oh, that's so interesting. I think, God, there's a few. Like when I was in that mode, learning the fundamentals, and it's almost like you start out. I mean, when I left uni and started in that role, and was in there for about 6 months, I kind of started to lose sight of that initial love that I had for advertising, which was the beer in the room, cracking really funny briefs with people, talking to people. And I started to lose sight of that. And I think one of the main things I would tell myself is that it's all going to be okay, and that it still exists. And like, stop going on Reddit, like the advertising Reddit forum, and looking at like how advertising's dying and whether it's going to be around by the time I want to get in, that kind of thing. But yeah, so I'd say just it's all going to be okay. And also keep that true north. Like, I think no matter what I've done, I've always tried to make sure that the work I'm doing is of the best of my ability, and I'm comfortable with it when I go to interviews or meet with people, that I can show it off and be prideful in it. Even if it's not award winning, just be comfortable that you've done your best. And I think that'll show in like how you give yourself off, which I think is really important. And, it's also important to find the right agency for you. I mean, you have to, like, for me, for instance, all I cared about was whether the work was good. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the luxury. Like, sometimes you'll be faced with a role where maybe, the people are excellent, and then that's another draw card. Like, if the people are excellent, they're not jaded, they're still enthusiastic, they can fill you with hope. Like, that kind of thing's really, that's so important, and it'll just keep you motivated. There's nothing worse than working under people who don't care about advertising. There's nothing worse than that. So I'd say just keep the true north of creating good work, and get your own true north. It doesn't have to be that, but that is what will keep you motivated to keep going. And I think just dealing with rejection, you need that true north.
Oh, totally. And it's when I spoke to Paul Kapmer on season 1, he wrote a piece called A Manifesto of Mediocrity, and it's all about that, whereby 80% of us do all right stuff. It's some of it's good, some of it's average, but a lot of the large volume of stuff that we pump through isn't Super Bowl ads that where you make loads of money and we're all in New York and smoking cigars and drinking cocktails. It's not about that, and it's about just feeling fulfilled in what you do. And one of the ways that you achieve that is just by enjoying what you do, and as you say, feeling inspired by the people that mentor you, but then also just feeling inspired knowing that you've given it your best shot. And if you're happy in the context of your own work, then what more is there?
Exactly right. You just have to, that's just the most important thing, be comfortable with where you are, and feel like you're achieving something in yourself. And I think that'll get you to a good place regardless. I think one other tip I'll have is, like, definitely for just juniors in general, is just don't stop applying at places. Like, just send your shit everywhere. I remember my first internship, my first internship, I was a pretty, like, fresh out of uni, absolute trash portfolio.
Honestly, yeah, horrific.
I remember the summer holidays, I was like sending my portfolio around to I sent it to about 70 agencies. No one wanted a bar of it. But this one place, which I just cannot believe I got into, the guy there, he just fostered young talent, and he was really amazing. And I remember I sent my portfolio to him, and I went for an interview with him, thinking it was him, but he was too busy, and I met with his junior. But, like, that kind of thing, just having, like, just sending your portfolio anywhere, keeping up with, like, the rejection, not taking it to heart. And yeah, again, with that job, I mean, I went for my first day, and I read the itinerary for the day, and it said not worth mentioning underneath my name. So you just have to be really, like, resilient, and just know that it's all going to be okay.
Yeah, fair enough. Oh, well, Zac, thank you so much for coming on today, mate. And were there any sort of parting thoughts before we close the interview?
No, mate, just keep getting great people on this podcast. It's doing wonders.
Well, mate, really appreciate you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, mate.